Nitro
106. Also September 22nd.
Also a legendary show in some ways.
It certainly was. No one knew it at the time, I don't think. I guess no one knew that Austin Stunning Vince would be historic either. So the announcers are opening the show.
Dude, the fans that were there knew.
That's true.
They responded like it was historic.
The announcers are opening the show. When Eric Bischoff hits the announce desk, he's confronting Larry Zbyszko. How dare you interfere in the NWO's match at Fall Brawl? And Zbyszko replies by having them show the footage from last year when the Outsiders powerbombed Bischoff off the stage. And said Bischoff is a coward who was too scared to fight, so he joined the NWO. He's going off, and he said this great fiery babyface promo. And then he talks about the guys who are being poor journalists and under terrible situations. And he had a line about the space shuttle blowing up and, quote, bodies flying everywhere.
I'll tell you exactly what he said. First off, when Bischoff came out, Larry's yelling at the other guys not to leave. He does not want to be abandoned by these guys. They've got to do their job. Bischoff looked like he could hardly remember his lines, pausing for long periods while he tries to figure out what he's going to say. Larry, as noted, cuts a hell of a promo. It was a hell of a promo. And then when he's done, Bischoff has just vanished. Bischoff does not respond to him, calling him a spineless little dweeb. And so then Larry begins chastising the announcers. Don't leave your post. He says, Dan Rather kept broadcasting when the Challenger exploded and bodies were flying everywhere. It's like you just compared the Challenger explosion to Tony Schiavone and Bobby Heenan leaving the ring when the NWO come out. Really? You were doing so well. And you had to do that.
You had to bring that into play.
That took away from the entertainment portion of the programming.
Sure did.
And then Bischoff, he's trying to do this heel promo, and he concludes by saying, tell that to your new commissioner, Roddy Pieper.
Yeah. I didn't catch that. Rey Mysterio Jr. versus Silver King.
In a Cirque du Soleil match.
The fans very quickly spotted something in the higher portions of the building and stopped paying attention to the match. It was Raven coming through the crowd. So here we are in 2016. I guess the Bayley Sasha match at Brooklyn was in 2015, right?
Yeah.
Yes. So last year, but the reverse top rope Frankensteiner is still a huge move and very, very scary. So imagine what it must have been like when Ray busted this move out in the Nitro opener in 1997. A reverse top rope Frankensteiner, and it wasn't even the finish.
Dude.
It wasn't even a big spot.
It wasn't even not only the finish, but Silver King was up. I counted it. It was like 3 seconds. He was back on his feet doing moves.
Well, to be fair, Silver King didn't land on his head.
He didn't land on his belly.
Well, you know, that's what I think they were thinking, which is, I just landed on my belly. I'm cool.
Yeah, but he got all the way over. This
But
man is more athletic than Sasha Banks.
The idea is it's supposed to be spectacular, and it should be a finish, and it wasn't.
Or at least a big moment. Fans had never seen that move before. So Eddie comes down the ramp. He distracts Ray, which lets Silver King cut him off. But then Silver King misses a splash, and Ray hits the West Coast pop for the win. Place did go nuts for the finish.
This was one crazy high spot after another. Mm-hmm. There was nothing resembling a wrestling match. No. I can't even call it a video game.
It was a highlight reel.
There was no power bar.
It was a live-action highlight reel.
Men were not getting weaker as a result of men hitting moves on them.
I see.
It was just move, 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 pin. And they were all outstanding moves.
Oh, yes.
Like, I should have hated it, but it was great.
It was so cool. You couldn't.
I mean, you can't do a whole show of this, but every now and then, having a match like this is great.
So Eddie is yelling at the ref. The ref is leaning through the ropes yelling at Eddie. Ray does a flip dive over the ref onto Eddie, wipes him out, picks up the cruiserweight belt, and leaves it across Eddie's body. And Halloween Havoc's coming. Hugh Morris versus some anonymous random guy. Bill Gomer or Gordon or something.
Can I say something about this match? This was way more competitive than I remember.
Mm-hmm.
He showed up and they had a match. It was only like 3 minutes long, but they went back and forth. And the fans start getting into this guy, and he kicks out of a moonsault, hits a body slam, then he lifts the guy up and hits another body slam, and then he hits a jackhammer and wins. And the crowd goes crazy for the guy. And he stands there and he looks at the camera and he goes, "That's one." Now, the simple thinking is that you take an impressive-looking guy, you have him never lose, and he will get over. And granted, this has worked before. Ryback it worked for crying out loud. Goldberg, there are other guys. But it doesn't always work. Do you remember Crimson?
I do.
Oh, yeah.
This was TNA's attempt at making Goldberg. It totally did not work.
No.
So, I don't know if people give Goldberg enough credit. On day one, this dude was green as grass, but man, this guy had a presence. He had a look. He had an aura. And I'm still baffled they didn't fuck this up until like
It is
a
astounding.
year and a half later. It's mind-boggling.
Suddenly they made it through match 1.
Yeah. But man, it was very clear watching this that this dude totally had something from day one. And I think WWE to this day, they think a guy has something and they push him real hard, but maybe he doesn't have it. Goldberg absolutely had it here on the very first day.
The best part of this is actually, it was a totally subtle thing. Bill's just standing there, and he's huge, but he has no entrance, he has no pyro, he doesn't even have a name. He's just Bill Goldberg, and he's standing in the corner, like, arms crossed, looking mean, which is a great thing for Bill Goldberg to do. And Hugh Morris comes out, and this is a hot crowd all night anyway. Total superstar reaction for this top-of-the-bottom card guy. And he comes out, his music's playing, he's huge, he looks great, and he's doing his wacky open arms pose, and they're going crazy. And they loved Hugh Morris. And he hit that moonsault, and everyone's cheering, and they count 1 and 2. What? And it caught him totally off guard. And Goldberg came back, whipped his ass, won clean, and they went crazy for him too. And here's the best part. Gene goes to interview him on the ramp. And Goldberg blows him off, has nothing to say, goes to the back. Gene could not believe he would pass up promo time, and that was that.
Dude, that was a great touch. They went to interview him because in storyline, they figured out, shit, this guy's somebody. He just beat Hugh Morris. And then Goldberg blows him off because he doesn't give a shit about that kind of stuff. This was perfect. You know, they would have sent a generic brown-haired fella into the ring on
God.
Raw.
Goldberg, what are your thoughts?
Yep, and Goldberg would have had to cut a fucking stupid-ass promo, and he would have been dead on arrival.
All I could think about this, watching this, was this is the opposite of everything they've ever tried to do with Roman Reigns.
Yeah, you leave the fans wanting more because you don't know what the guy's all about. He didn't give you any information. He didn't cut a promo. And so you're left going, I want to see more of that guy because I want to figure out who he is.
Yes. And watch him beat more ass.
Right.
They recapped Larry interfering at Fall Brawl. He shoved Scott Hall into a schoolboy, and then he also counted the pin.
This was ridiculous.
Maybe if I'd watched the whole show and had more context, it would have made more sense.
No, it made no sense.
Okay.
And the announcers explained that the NWO had been making their own rules, and so now it was time for WCW to make their own rules. That's how they explained this. It was so preposterous, but you know what? Place went crazy. They loved it.
Disco Inferno versus Alex Wright. Speaking of historic incidents, September 22nd, 1997, I have to believe is the only time we got babyface Disco Inferno.
You know what, though? On paper, you see Disco Inferno versus Alex Wright, and you think this is going to be the wackiest bullshit match ever. The bell rang, and they had a wrestling match.
Had a wrestling match.
And they exchanged holds.
They were professional wrestlers.
And the crowd's going crazy for Disco. And then there was a finish and a title change. In a million years, I would never have imagined that this would have been what it was. It
Competence.
was so weird. I was like, why are you wrestling? What's happening?
So Disco's making his big punchy comeback, and it was pretty clear why he never wrestled as a babyface again. The place did love his personality, his dancing. They loved when he crossed Alex on the ropes and shook the ropes up and down. They did a double crossbody collision spot, but Disco landed on top, and the ref counted 3, and Disco Inferno was your new TV champion.
I just was baffled.
Alex Wright does a move where he body slams Disco, goes to the top rope, he jumps off the top rope high into the air and does a single foot stomp.
Sorta? He's been doing this move for weeks now. I'm still trying to figure out if it's supposed to be a stomp or a knee.
By the way, Tony, he's been doing it for weeks. Tony says, I've never seen that before.
Yes. It was a very Nitro moment. So Jacqueline appears. She drags Jean down to the ring, says she wants to talk to Disco. She says he knows why she's there, and everyone knew why, or she knew why he had been gone for 6 months. He warns her this is not the time or place. She says she could beat him silly, and they both knew it. He said, she said she could beat him, and they both knew it. He says this is silly and absurd to acknowledge. He starts to leave. She pulls him back. He warns her again not to push this, and he leaves. So there you go. One night, Disco Inferno babyface. Now he's a heel going to a feud with Jacqueline. Scott Hall and Six came out for a promo. Did the survey. Said they were for life. So it was a fluke that Luger had pinned him. It was all Zbyszko's fault. He says, tell Terry Taylor that I want Lex Luger right now. He gave Lex maybe 3 seconds. Lex did not appear. Hall says, this proves Lex is a coward. So then he calls out Larry. Larry wastes no time in going down to ringside, but he gets there and it's Scott Hall and Six. He says, no, I'm not getting in the ring until that guy leaves. Six won't leave. Hall says this proves that Larry is also a coward. Going back to the announce desk. So we get Scott Hall versus Hector Garza.
That was much ado about nothing, by the way. Hall's in there. He's calling the guy out. The guy strides down to the ring. The place is going absolutely crazy. He gets to ringside, and then he goes back. It's like, okay. But they didn't turn on him.
No. Well, he's smart. There was 2 of them.
Well, it was a period in the wrestling world where there was a little bit of logic in wrestling.
Yeah.
And this made sense.
Yeah.
And so it was accepted.
Yes.
When you have a business with no logic, nobody gives a shit about anything.
No. So Scott Hall versus Hector Garza. Total squash. He's stomping him, slapping him, throwing him around, making him look like a fool. Starts fucking with the ref's shirt and untucks the shirt and undoes his bow tie and kicks him in the butt. And then Garza hits a schoolboy and the ref counts 3. And that wasn't even a fast count. He just counted 3 and Garza pinned him.
I think it was supposed to be kind of like a little bit of a fast count, but it was not like what was supposed to be a fast count.
Right.
At Starrcade.
So Hall snaps. He lays out Garza with the Razor's Edge. He grabs Mark Curtis, hits him with the Razor's Edge as well. Very casually, by the way. I realize he's way bigger than this dude, but it's still a grown man he's carrying over his head around the ring.
Yeah, he was carrying him and walked over to the camera and cut a promo.
Yes.
Into the camera as he's holding the man up.
Up over his head.
You know what's funny is this is a famous match. And you would never know it watching it in 2016 because shit like this happens all the time in wrestling now. But back then, the idea that Hector Garza would pin Scott Hall with a slip on a banana peel finish, this didn't happen regularly. So, of course, the narrative later became that Hall had put over Hector Garza. That was a big thing back then.
Yes.
Nowadays, I mean, nobody falls for this bullshit anymore. What this match was, Hall beat the shit out of him forever, slipped on a banana peel, and then beat the shit out of him afterwards. I mean, there was nothing resembling putting a guy over. We see this all the time. But back then, it was kind of new, and it did sort of become a thing that people would talk about. Well, Hall put over Hector Garza.
When Garza came out, I realized it was this match, and I noted the irony of Scott Hall being there with the 1, 2, 3 kid on the floor, the last guy who beat him in a big upset.
Yep.
And this is nothing like that at all. In fact, when it was done, I assumed there must have been another Scott Hall Hector Garza match somewhere.
But at least with the 1, 2, 3 kid, they followed it up.
Yeah.
And they made the guy into something.
Yes.
This was like, Hector was one and done.
8-man tag, the Villanos and La Parca and Psychosis versus Ultimo Dragon and Ciclope versus Juventud Guerrera and Lizmark Jr.
I love this because Ciclope is Halloween.
Yes.
Yeah.
But they didn't want it to be Halloween because it was too wacky. So they called him fucking A. It's the Cyclops. It doesn't fucking matter. He was a Cyclops instead of a fucking pumpkin. So then, on this show, he just figured, fuck it, who cares? And he showed up in his Halloween outfit.
Right.
But he's still Ciclope, the Cyclops.
He did have a bandana with one eye tied around his mask So the eye was there, but the pumpkin was still there as well?
You know, I mentioned this before, but it always amazes me in wrestling. The shit that matters to these people and the shit that doesn't matter. Like, it mattered to them that this motherfucker was not a pumpkin, but he had to be a Cyclops. Why the fuck does it matter? Can anyone answer this for me?
They're equally wacky, yes.
Do you remember when Kane, this is my favorite example of all time. Do you remember when Kane was unmasked?
Right.
And he still had some hair.
Right.
Okay. So very shortly after he was unmasked, they'd shaved the front part of his head, and so he looked like had a receding hairline, and his hair's all fucked up, right?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Then he shaves his head off because he didn't want to walk through airports with that stupid haircut.
Or his hair.
So what they did, every day for years, they buzzed his head with like a number 2 blade, so he had a stubble all over. And then they took a flat razor and they cut his hair back to the middle of his head. They went to this trouble to keep his fucking haircut consistent.
Yeah.
This was during the period where nothing fucking made sense. There were stupid angles that were started and stopped and bullshit left and right. But every day, the goddamn barber backstage had to make sure that he cut Kane's fucking fake hair right. And this is another one. Cyclope
Really got
versus
under your
Halloween.
skin.
Just stupid. It's so stupid.
So this match was full lucha rules, no tags, just leave the ring and another guy comes in. As a result, it was a non-stop parade of action. Wasn't always the prettiest action, a lot of sloppiness, a lot of wonkiness, but the crowd loved it. Announcers loved it. I liked Heenan's line where he said they just hit Cyclope so hard he's got 2 eyes now.
Should have said his eye is crossed.
There was a point here, by the way, where they were all doing a parade of dives and he was flying upside down and nobody caught him and he hit the guardrail, he hit the ground, and I'm pretty sure he's just dead. It was bad. So, Psychosis goes after, let's see. Sonny Ono has Ultimo Dragon. Psychosis goes to hit Dragon. Dragon moves. Ono gets wiped out. Dragon then puts Psychosis in the Dragon Sleeper on the floor. Meanwhile, in the ring, Hoovy and La Parka are going back and forth a bit.
It doesn't matter.
Hoovy gets the win with the wacky roll-up. And I'm sure this was very confusing to a lot of fans, and I'm sure the announcers had no idea what was going on, but let me tell you, no one could have said this was boring.
No, this was very much like that Ray Jr. match.
Yeah.
They took all of the luchadors and they said, just go do a goddamn lucha match. Just do a bunch of moves. And then Hoovy, you're winning. And that's what they did. And they delivered. I loved this. And it was ridiculous.
Oakland brought Roddy Piper out for a promo. Piper said Larry Zbyszko had not been a legal ref at Fall Brawl, so to fix the situation, he is going to be a legal ref at Halloween Havoc. And he talked about his own match at Halloween Havoc, a cage match with Hulk Hogan, the first cage match they'd ever had, and the last because he was going to finish Hogan once and for all. Said cage matches are brutal and barbaric and insane, and that's why I want one.
It's another legendary match coming up, Age in the Cage.
I think it was Hogan and Flair did a cage match with obviously fake barbed wire on top.
Yeah, that's coming up.
That's at some point before
It's
Nitro
in
dies.
February of either 99 or 2000.
Okay, we got a ways to go.
Because they do the same match exactly 1 year apart. And the first year, they do a 1.1 buy rate. And exactly 1 year later, they do an 0.1 buy rate for the same match.
Well, that's worse then.
365 days later.
Lee Marshall did the road report. I skipped it. Feud of the year.
Oh, my God.
Every year. Faces of Fear versus the Steiners.
I got a question for you guys. In the WWE NXT universe, we got Raw, SmackDown, and NXT. Who do we have like these guys? We got Brock Lesnar.
That's the only one.
And we got Samoa Joe.
Even he. God bless Joe. He's not like these guys.
I would classify him there. We had 4 of them in one match right here.
Oh, yeah.
And they weren't the only 4 guys on the show because later Scott Norton comes out. This business is so missing the big, mean fuckers that just go out there and beat your ass. This feud is the best. The match will never get old.
No.
Never. There was a moment First off, my favorite spot in the world, which is the Faces of Fear backdrop into a power bomb.
jeez.
Yeah.
Where Meng has to, on purpose, fuck up the backdrop every time, just so we can see how powerful the Barbarian is.
Yes.
As he grabs the man out of midair, hurks his ass in the air, and slams him on the mat. I think it was Scott, and it was Rick.
Taking the move?
No, when he gave Meng the
Rick hit Ming with the belly to belly.
overhead belly to belly in ultra slow motion.
Yes.
Slow motion, I thought, you know what? If I got in my car, I could probably drive to wherever this building was and maybe save Meng, maybe catch him. Landed right on his head. Thought he was dead. Of course, he's unfazed because he's Meng. I loved every split second of this match. It was beautiful.
It is the best feud of all time.
Ever.
The only thing I can add that it's a subtle thing you missed. Right before the powerbomb spot, Scott's in there with Barbarian, and he just grabs him and says, I'm going to hit this guy with a dragon suplex.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Think Barbarian had ever taken a dragon suplex before?
Didn't matter.
Think he had any idea it was coming? Scott grabbed him, put him in full Nelson, herked him backwards over his head, Barbarian went flying. So Barbarian's response was, all right, Ming, backdrop this fucker. And he backdropped him through the air so Barbarian could catch Scott Steiner in midair, in powerbomb position, upside down, then herk him up and then slam him down.
You know, I don't recommend it at all. But what I love about Ming and Barbarian in particular is they will give or take anything.
Yes.
Like that one match where Barbarian just walked up to the top rope and threw Benoit like almost over the top rope on the other corner out of the ring with the overhead belly to belly. They'll be dropped on their head. They'll be slammed hither and yon. They don't give a fuck.
No.
And you know what's funny? They never got hurt.
No.
Ming's selling cars nowadays. He's totally fine.
Yes.
Barbarian's still working.
So
What great men.
here's the finish. The Steiners do the elevated bulldog spot where Scott lifts the guy up on his shoulders, Rick comes off the top of the bulldog, and they pin him. So Scott gets Barbarian up on his shoulders, and he turns his back to the corner. Rick goes up top, but Meng shoves Rick off. And the spot here obviously is he goes crashing into Scott, and Scott, knowing this is coming, takes a safe, protected fall to the mat while carefully lowering the man who's working with Barbarian so everyone gets out alive. No. Rick jumps in the air as hard as fast and as far as he can. He crashes into his own brother, who was carrying a 300-pound man on his shoulders, and they all just fall to earth wherever gravity takes them. Madness. Absolute madness. Meng then puts the Tongan death grip on Rick and pins him.
I just loved it. There's a wild schmoz, and Rick goes to give Meng an overhead belly to belly or something, and Meng just grabs his neck and just bulls him to the mat and lays on him as the ref counts to 3. Yes. I was like, this is the most beautiful match I've ever seen in my life.
Perfect wrestling match. I want
best.
this feud. I realize I'm watching an old show here, but I want this feud to go on for 20 years. I want it to be on every show for 20 years, and I just want them to trade wins forever. I want 50-50 booking until I die.
Sure.
Just win, lose, win, lose.
This is a great example, by the way, when UFC started taking off, and there was concern that, this is going to kill wrestling because it's real. You will never see anything like this match in MMA.
No.
Ever.
Oh, no.
As long as you can do professional wrestling matches like this sport will live for fucking ever. God, it was great.
Eric Bischoff and Hulk Hogan came out for a promo.
Did you notice they edit out Voodoo Child?
Yes, they did.
I don't know. What do they put? This the NWO theme?
No, they got a wacky their own.
Oh. I'd pay more.
It's funny, too, because Hogan is, singing or mouthing along to the song, and the song is not playing Voodoo Child. Apparently, the Hendricks estate did not grant WWE permission to use it.
You don't say.
There's moments on Saturday night where Jimmy Garvin will come out dancing to Sharp Dressed Man, but we can't hear Sharp Dressed Man.
I want to mention one more thing about the last match. When it's over, because the Faces of Fear have won, for some reason, in the list of replays they decided to show us, out of all of the slobber knocker action in this match, one of the replays is Meng and the Barbarian walking down the ramp before the match started. And you hear their native music, whatever you want to call it in the background, tribal music, and they're just walking down the ramp in slow motion. and they're wearing something resembling fur.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is the best team ever. There's no tag team act that I love as much as this one. Honestly, in all of wrestling history, I can't think of one. I don't want to hear about the Road Warriors or the Steiners. I love them too, but nobody to me matches these two fuckers. Should be in the Hall of Fame.
There was a show, a Nitro, a month or two back where they had a very brief audio problem, and we didn't hear the announcers or the live crowd. All we could hear was the Faces of Fear's music. And when it's isolated like that, it's very soothing and peaceful.
It really is. It is the calm before the storm. And when the match was over, both guys look in the camera and they just start screaming in some foreign tongue. I have no fucking idea what they said, but I'm like,
barking.
You tell them, man. You
barking.
tell them.
So Bischoff and Hogan come out for a promo. Hogan is wearing Ric Flair's robe with the sleeves torn off. Talks about Kurt Hennig's great acting performance. Says Flair is washed up. And Piper had lied to his wife and kids when he promised to come home. That's true. He's got him there. He vowed to win the cage match with Piper, hurt him real bad. He ran on Piper for a while, and it ended. Randy Savage came out for a promo. Now, I don't know if he lost his ski goggles, but he's come out here for a while, and he's been so meticulous with his gear that he has had a bandana on his head and goggles over his eyes, and the lightning bolts on the bandana match the lightning bolts on the goggles. So he's out here in all his black and white NWO gear and yellow plastic sunglasses. Like he was getting dressed to come out, the goggles didn't make the trip, and he shouted, "Does anyone have any sunglasses I can borrow?" So he does this promo. He runs down Dallas Page, says he's going to beat Page at Halloween Havoc. Also, Ric Flair will never come back. This led to, I promise this actually happened, and I'm not making it up, Macho Man Randy Savage versus Stevie Richards.
Whoa.
I am not the only one who had a hard time processing this. Randy Savage was also not sure this was the right match. Checked with Stevie, checked with the ref, left the ring for a while to check with other people. I'm supposed to wrestle him? He beat Stevie up for a long time. He threw him to the side and took the ref so Liz could choke him. He confronted Raven, who rose to his feet, but Liz ran over and convinced Savage to go back into the ring. And Savage hit the top rope elbow, and he won.
It was a great moment when he's over there and he's staring down Raven, and it might have been Bobby Heenan, but one of the announcers goes, "So Randy Savage will fight anybody." And I thought, I believe that.
Oh, yeah.
And we're missing guys like that today as well.
We need more insanity in wrestling.
I mean, we got, again,
people.
Brock Lesnar and Samoa Joe. Who else do we have that'll just fight anybody?
So Raven hits the ring, has a stare down with Savage. He throws Savage throws the ref down. It looks like it's going to get physical, but Raven turns. He DDTs Stevie. Savage says, "Well, I'm done," and he leaves, and that's that.
Mike Tenay says, and I quote, "What a love-hate relationship between Raven and Stevie."
Stevie loves him and Raven hates him?
Is that what it is? Because I've been missing the
that
love.
That makes more sense than anything else I can put together.
This seems like a hate relationship and nothing more.
Raven wearing a Ministry Psalm 69 t-shirt. Stevie Richards, Poison.
Talk dirty to me, I believe.
I think it was.
Yeah. Conan and Scott Norton were supposed to wrestle Harlem Heat. Booker T comes out. He says, "Stevie Ray has torn his Achilles. He's not here, but I will fight any of you NWO guys one-on-one." Norton says, "Look, it's not our fault your brother got hurt. You signed to wrestle a tag match. You are wrestling a tag match." And in fact, it was really 3-on-1 because Vincent was out there too. So Booker tries to go it alone against Norton, Conan, and Vincent. And I don't know if this is his first high-profile singles match, and he's really excited, or what. God, he was sloppy. He fell down on everything. And then they just triple-teamed him for the DQ. It sucked, and I have no idea what the point of it was.
It's a mess.
Booker T looked good in this match. All 2 minutes and 28 seconds of it. But my son was very impressed that was Booker T.
Oh, yeah?
It's the first time he's actually seen... He doesn't watch Nitro with me. Every so often he'll come back in. Is that Booker T? Very impressed with him.
Has he figured out that the Giant is the big show?
Yeah, he's watched that as well.
I was most impressed with Scott Norton, who just wasn't taking no bullshit. You sign for a tag match, you're going to get it. And then whatever was going on at the end, a brutal fucking mess, but it's fine because Scott Norton was involved, and I would have it no other way. His matches should not be pretty.
It had the main event, and this was the 5th time the NWO music had played throughout the show.
Probably.
Maybe 6th.
So it's Kurt Hennig and Jeff Jarrett. And fans don't care. And I was thinking, well, I couldn't really remember any issue between them. Why would they care? I know it's a title match and all, but still. And then one of the announcers pointed out, within like the past year, both of these guys have been in the Four Horsemen and stabbed the Horsemen in the back. Now they're fighting each other.
What a storyline.
Why should I care?
Kurt Hennig versus Jeff Jarrett, I was expecting it to be better than it was.
Oh, yeah.
This is not the old Mr. Perfect. He had a couple of very wacky bumps, but the old Kurt Hennig's gone. And they just went out there and they did some stuff, and I was bored shitless.
I didn't think it was bad.
It wasn't bad. It
would have been more fun if it had been bad.
It was just there. It was just a match.
It was two men killing time for approximately 10 minutes. Liz takes the ref. Savage runs out. And he can't just hit Jarrett on his own. He has to get the belt and pass it to Hennig. So Hennig can hit Jarrett with the belt.
You know what this reminded me of? Reminded me of a Triple H match. Because he hits the guy with the belt, and the guy's unconscious.
Yes.
And you could just pin him. Mm-hmm. But no, you've got to hoist his lifeless body up so that you can hit your move. Mm-hmm. Which is, if you think this is real, if you imagine it's real, this was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Why would you do this?
He's already out. Why would you waste the effort?
What a complete waste of energy, Ahmed Johnson.
Can you imagine if UFC, if a guy got punched out and his opponent lifted him up because I must win with a Darce choke?
Yeah, I must do a submission. Let me lift up his unconscious body and put it on. That's what the goddamn referees are for.
Yeah. So Kurt wins with the fisherman suplex. Nothing to see here is what I wrote. The NWO comes out. They take Jarrett apart. The Giant appears. He storms down the ramp. The NWO bails, and the show ended.
Yeah.
All I can think was, I would love to know what the Giant got paid for these 20 seconds of action.
Hey, it's not only that, but what was weird about it was I'm watching this show, and I'm kind of into it, and it's a fun show, and then we get to the main event, and I practically fall asleep. They have a lame finish. They have the NWO run-in, as always. And then here comes the Giant. And as a viewer who watches this show every single week, I could not possibly have cared less. Like, I didn't care one bit that the Giant came down. But the crowd is going nuts. Why? Why were they so excited that the Giant ran in? Because he's big?
Hadn't seen him yet on TV.
They were into everything on this show.
Man.
That's the main event here.
We need more crowds like this
Not
nowadays.
a lot to do in Salt Lake, so...
There's plenty to do.
Think so?
Can have multiple wives.
I see.
That would keep you busy.
Hey, that's the show, everybody. An exciting, historic edition of Raw and Nitro. All right, Vinny, plug your podcast.
Everyone go to...
He forgot the name right there.
No.
Did you see that? He was going to say Hooked on Sonics.
Facebook.com/LockedOnSeahawks. You can follow us on Twitter @LockedSeahawks because there's not enough room to say Locked On. Also, LockedOnSeahawks@gmail.com if you want to send me a note.
Twitter restricts the length of your username?
Apparently it does.
Really?
It was
Wow.
news to me as well.
How about that? Check it out, everybody. Also, check out Death of WCW, the audiobook, audible.com, iTunes, and Amazon.com. And I hear that you can get an Audible free trial and listen to the book that way as well. And hopefully I still get paid for that. But anyway, check it out. There's a link on the front page in the Brian and Vinny show. So that's it. We'll talk to you again after a while.
Good night.
Bye.